Yo, welcome back to my channel. Listen, let's have the conversation. You can already tell what we're about to talk about. I'm pretty sure y'all already saw the video that was circulating over the weekend. So apparently Michael B. Jordan was out doing, press for his new Creed movie, and apparently there was an interviewer that was interviewing him on the red carpet, and she was just saying how they went to high school together, and she was just kind of trying to greet him like, yo, like my guy from from back in the day, we went to school together. And so Michael B. Jordan took upon that time to like confront her about allegedly bullying him for being corny, and allegedly, saying that, he was corny and that he used to do stuff like, bring his headshot to school and, I guess tell everybody that he was, working towards going to be a big time actor. Of course, online, there's been a lot of talk about this whole ordeal. And there was some, some speculation where people were saying, well, she didn't necessarily say that, he was corny, but she was supporting, the statement that her co-host has said, that he was corny, he was a nice guy. Even if she didn't directly say that he was corny, obviously she did admit that, hey, in high school, grades 7 through 12, she was involved in the bullying of, Michael B. Jordan. And so the thing that I found funny was that throughout the whole interview, she kept denying it. Like, no, I didn't say that. But then at the end of the interview, she wrapped it up by saying, well, at least you're not corny anymore. What? Most of the comments that I saw on the post was just like, in support of Michael B. Jordan. Like, I know that felt good for him. You got to be careful how you treat people. And a lot of the comments were very supportive. But one of the reasons why I wanted to hop on here and talk to you guys about it was one of the things that I found interesting was I kept seeing this one comment. It was a comment where people was like, he should never confronted her. And it was even one comment where somebody was like, that just proved her point. Him confronting her proved her point. He corny for even bringing it up. And with that being said, after I saw those comments, it kind of made me want to address a couple things. Number one, I feel like, especially in the black community, a lot of times what we call corny is just a person doing something other than what is commonly known. You know what I'm saying? Because I do feel like in the black community that we are very monolithic. Like it comes out in jokes, it comes out in struggle, it comes out in preferences, it comes out in different things that we express, definitely on social media. A person can make a joke, all black people like hot sauce, or all black people, I heard even one comedian say one time, all black people don't even have a bank account. We go straight to the check cashing place to, to cash our check. And I'm thinking like, no, that's definitely not my experience. Even if there was a meme, somebody has shared a meme on my Facebook, like let alone this weekend, even before this whole situation where, they were like, black people only like glazed donuts. We don't like assorted donuts, and whatever. And even in that situation, I think we are very monolithic. And I think what happens is that in the black community, when there is a person that is not doing what is commonly black, or what is, what people view as what is cool or what is hip or what is in, a lot of times that person is deemed to be corny, and that is just something that I don't understand. And number two, even seeing that comment, I kept seeing comments where people was just like, that was high school, he should, he been waiting his whole life to say that, he been waiting, man, he should have left that alone. And I think we do not acknowledge a lot of times that how you were treated by people, by your peers, by kids, in school, in grade school, in high school, in elementary, a lot of people do not talk about how that affects you growing up and dealing with people in the real world. You know what I'm saying? As an adult, especially if you have not done the work, like if you have not been to therapy, if you have not, done the work to work through that. A lot of people don't talk about, how that can become traumatizing. So it's deemed as, oh, that was high school. We bullied you. We called you lame. We called you corny, during high school. Man, you was a kid. But it's like when you are in school, that is like your first introduction of dealing with multiple people on a daily basis. So when you get into the workplace, or even when you get into relationships, or when you are on the internet, a lot of times those insecurities and those experiences, they play out, once you're triggered, So I have no idea what I was saying. My camera stopped, but it kind of made me think about my childhood and my upbringing as it relates to, being around other kids, as a kid myself. I was different. I was different. I was the kid that where everybody was, out listening to Jeezy and listening to whoever, young this, young that, love this, love that. I was somewhere listening to TD Jakes and Shirley Caesar. Like, that's just what I was, while the other little boys was, were playing sports, I was somewhere, playing a piano and fake playing church and all this stuff. And I was always deemed different. Like, even in my life now, I was always made to feel like, I was, the corny person. Like I was, the person that, that was not cool or that was not hip. And that affected me a great deal. Like I went through like all of my 20s, just never fitting in. That affected me like so much as an adult until I had to the point where I had to go to therapy. I literally had to work through that. This particular weekend, I had went to one of my friends' going away party. And I had went to one of my friends' going away party. And this is one of my friends who, we went to high school together. Like, that's my homie. She is like one of my like most supportive friends and everything. But she was having a going away party. And she is just one of my friends who her turn up vibe, for the lack of a better phrase, is different from my turn up vibe. Like I do like to turn up. I do like to do certain things, but with her and her friends is very different. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm a type of person, like my turn up vibe is more chill. Like I'm not the person that's about to come in the room and know like the 10 most latest rap and trap songs. So this weekend she had a party, and so I went to her party and I already knew like what it was going to be, and when I got there I was just like, had this been like some time ago or some years ago, I probably wouldn't have came, because I know what it feels like to be in a setting like that, and around people that look like you, and you are made to feel like you're lame because you don't know whatever song they're playing, or you don't turn up, or you don't or you're corny, or you're because you're different. And so I was thinking about that. And so after the party, she called me. She was like, yo, thank you for coming. She was like, I know that was, out of your element, but thank you for showing up. And I was like, no, it's fine. I was, happy to be there to support my friend. But it brought me back around to, I remember like years ago, I was talking to my therapist and we were just talking about this. And I was telling him, I will admit that because of my upbringing, because of certain experiences where I have been made to feel like, I was corny, or because I was, lame, or because I wasn't as cool, or I wasn't black enough, I was just like, I'm gonna be honest, like when I go into certain spaces with all people that look like me, like in certain social settings, there have been times in the past where like I kind of get a little bit of like anxiety, And I was telling my therapist this one time because I was on my way to an event, and it was very social. It was very like, we're going to turn up, we're going to do this. And don't get me wrong, I love a good time. I really do. My friends know I love a good time. But when it comes to like being around people that I don't know, sometimes it's just like, and I was telling my therapist a while back, and I was like, yeah, I got to go to this event, and I was like, I'm just kind of, and we were, I was walking him through what I was thinking. And so I was telling my therapist, I said, I'm a little nervous. I was like, I'm a little nervous about how I'm going to be received. I know what it feels like to be like, oh, you don't know this song? Oh man, that's because you too whitewashed. You too, you this, you lame, you quite. And I said, as a kid or being in high school or even in my 20s, I said, I know what that feels like. And I was telling my therapist this. The thing that really freed me was when he said this phrase. He was like, you can just exist. And I was like, wow. He was like, you can just exist. He was like, when you walk into a room full of anybody, whether there's all people that look like you, whether there's all people that's your opposite, whoever it is, he was like, you can just exist. You do not have to be or try to become what you are not. He was like, your existence is valid. And I was just like, yo, and that really helped me. Like that really freed me. Like anybody that knows me know I love Jodeci. I love Tony Bennett, PJ Morton, John Legend. I love my 70s R&B. Like I love all of that. Like whatever like kind of space I'm in, I can just exist. I don't have to conform or be what is the norm just because my skin color is one thing. I really do think that we as a black people, like we have to do we just got to do a better job. Like, we have got to have a conversation about how we can reshape and redefine what it is, what it means to be corny, or what it means to be lame, or what it means to not be the cool. Because even in our community, everything is about being cool. Everything is about swag. Everything is about, what's in and what's not. And so then you have people that are doing things that's detrimental to their future, like drugs, like the fast life, like all of that. But those are things that are praised. Like, those are, especially when it comes to relationships. Like, and I think that we cannot even begin to ignore the reality that there are guys like me, there are guys like me that we are being rejected because we are not that. And so we are being deemed as like, oh, you lame, you corny, you know what I'm saying? And I think that we as a Black community, we have to have a conversation about of how we can redefine and reshape like what is deemed as in, or what is deemed as acceptable, for people that look like us. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because the co-host who actually said like, oh, Michael B. Jordan was corny, she actually made a statement that I just thought was crazy, and I'm gonna read it to you. What's funny to me is that the host who actually was saying like, oh, Michael B. Jordan, Michael B. Jordan is corny or whatever, she actually dubbed down on what she said. And this is what she said, which I found to be very interesting. She said, I don't have my glasses on, but she said, we all know the nice, corny guy. Michael B. Jordan is a nice, corny guy, and I don't mean that as a slight. She said, we all know the nice, corny guy treats you the best. And then she doubled down on that when she was confronted, and she said, I thought we all were doing our Sierra prayer for a nice, corny Russell Wilson to save us from these toxic niggas. No. And that proves my point. Like, a lot of times in the Black community, like, everything is so it's monolithic, because what that says to me is that, to all Black women, and I know that's not the truth, but to all Black women, if you are a nice guy that wants to treat women right, why can't you just be a good guy? Why do you have to be labeled as corny? And so what that says is that, like, it kind of implies that every Black woman, have this mindset. You know what I'm saying? That, like, if you are a guy that's out here treating women right, or if you are a guy that is out here on your grind, trying to be successful, trying to have a legacy, then you are corny. And it's just like, and I kind of hate that narrative, because it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense at all. But like I said, I really think that the Black community, like, we really need to have a conversation. We really need to have a conversation about what we define as corny versus what we define as successful versus what we define as acceptable to our culture. It even goes as far as to suggest and implies that a person who is corny, or a person that is lame, or a person who have that title is not Black enough. And that's another thing too. Like, it's funny because a couple weeks ago, I'm one of those type of people on YouTube, like, the suggested videos, they always get me. I always find myself going through a rabbit hole, especially when it comes to music. Like, I'm a type of person that I am always looking up nostalgic clips, like from the 70s, from the 80s, especially when it comes to music. So make a long story short, the week of the Grammys was on, and this whole conversation about, the Black artists no Black artists have won, Artists of the Year in a while. And I don't know the exact year, but I think since 1999. I think that was like the last Black female artist that has won Best Artist of the Year, the Grammys or whatever. And so I did my research. So I started doing researches, and I came to find out only 11 Black people in the history of the Grammys. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read only 11 Black artists in the history of the Grammys. As awesome as we are, as soulful as we are, as creative as we are, only 11 Black freaking artists have won Artist of the Year at the Grammys. And so it kind of led me down a rabbit hole. So I was looking at the Grammys. So then I started I wanted to see like all the clips of like who won, like Lauryn Hill. And I think it was, of course, Stevie Wonder, all the old artists. So then what I started doing while I was working, I started looking up all of these old award shows, award clips. And I started looking at John Legend receiving, y'all know I love John Legend. I started looking up John Legend, receiving his award. So then I started looking up Natalie Cole receiving her Grammy Awards in the 70s. I was just started looking up all these Grammy performances and Grammy speeches. So then I started looking up Michael Jackson, his Grammy performance, and how he was furious at the Grammys because he didn't win the year before Thriller. So I just went down this whole rabbit hole of like award shows and music interviews. And so then I started to get into Whitney Houston's award performances and all of that. And so what was funny to me was I was looking up her old clip from the Arsenio Hall show, and I was just like a deer in headlights. Like, I was not aware until he brought up her being booed at the Soul Train Awards, and I'm like, it literally caught me off guard. So I'm like, she is Whitney freaking Houston. Like, her being booed at the Soul Train Awards? Like, what? So I started to do my research, and unbeknownst to me, this is a real thing. So apparently, Whitney Houston was booed, I think, for like a couple years in a row. I could be wrong on how long, but she was booed because a lot of her black fans was feeling like she was being whitewashed, or she was not being black enough. And seeing that, I was just like, what? Like, I just did not understand. Like, a lot of people, and it just amazes me, like, what we as a black community, like, what we find, acceptable, or what we find necessary in order to be black, or what is necessary in order to be accepted by the community. And in my opinion, I think this whole thing with being corny, even this whole thing of not being black enough, I think it needs to be discussed, because I think what we have is we have two extremes. I think we have two extremes. Like, on one hand, if you're not considered like ratchet, or if you're not considered like ghetto, or if you're not, just out misbehaving, or if you're not doing something as simple as, being out in public talking on your phone as loud as you can, then you ain't black enough, and if you talk proper, and if you listen to a certain amount of white music, or if you ain't listening to like Lil Trap, Lil this and Young this, then you're not considered black, because that's what black people do. You know what I'm saying? And so what happens is, like, you have people that fit that, I guess. You have people that aim for that. You have people that becomes their reality. Like, I'm hood, I'm this, like, they own that. And then you have, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the other end of the spectrum where you have black people who try to deviate from that. Like, so what happens in doing so, you have black people that wants to create the other extreme of the reality. And so now you have this whole, what I call this whole black, excellence, and this black elitism, where it's just like, if you don't have 4 degrees, and then, the new black thing is to have 4 degrees, and to have your passport, and to do all this, and so what it becomes those type of people. Now they begin to look down on people who are not that. So now it becomes a thing, like, where it's just like I see people online that look like me shaming other black people because they don't have their passport. Like, there was literally this girl on Twitter not on Twitter, but she was on TikTok, shaming people like, because you went to Miami, I went overseas, you went to Miami, you went to Miami, and it's just like this whole thing of like, I have 4 degrees, I have, and it's just like, for somebody like me, like, I'm not that, I'm not on either side, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not that dude that's like, oh, I'm just about to be hood, and I'm thugged out, but I'm also not over here like, taking this lavish, solo, trips every weekend, and I got, 4 degrees, and I, this and the other, you know what I'm saying? Like, where it's just like, oh, I'm just black excellence, and it creates this thing of just like, what is black, and what is the new black, and it's just like, can we just let people exist? Without giving them labels, of, you corny, okay, you not corny, okay, you black, okay, but you black, I mean, like, can we just let people exist? Can we just let people exist without saying, oh, you're being whitewashed, or without saying, oh, you're just let people exist. And I'm so glad my therapist said that to me years ago. You can just exist. I'm not black. I'm not, the new black. I'm not, black excellence. I'm just a black man that is living out my experience the best way I know how. And it's just like, and I appreciate it if I'm not labeled as corny. I appreciate it if my fellow brother is not labeled as corny. I appreciate it if my sister is not labeled as whitewashed or a sellout. Just let us exist. Just let us exist. Yo, that's all I got, man.